We're so glad you're here. So I'm Stephanie Daker, Associate Professor of Art Education at Miami. And Luke, did you introduce yourself?
I don't think I did. I didn't get them all.
Is this good?
It's not.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's on. I'm Luke Egan, Assistant Professor of Art Education at Miami University.
And we have been working so hard for this day. We're so thrilled. We're so excited about today. And thank you all for being here. All right. Well, Marilyn Galvin Stewart is Professor Emerita at Kutztown University of Pennsylvania and recipient of the university's major awards for research and teaching. Dr. Stewart is the author of Experience Art, senior author of the elementary textbook series Explorations in Art, and co-author of the middle school series Art and the Human Experience. She is co-author of Rethinking Curriculum in Art, author of Thinking Through Aesthetics, and editor of the 15-volume Art Education and Practice series published by Davis Publications. Marilyn is a frequent keynote speaker and consultant in meetings and conferences throughout the nation and abroad. In decades of service to the field of art education, including her early years of elementary and middle school teaching, Dr. Stewart has initiated or been consultant to numerous national and local curriculum projects, some of which will be described here today. Dr. Stewart has conducted more than 200 extended professional development institutes, seminars, or in-service days over 35 states. A distinguished fellow of the National Art Education Association, Marilyn has received numerous awards for her contributions and was named 2011 National Art Educator of the Year by the National Art Education Association. We are so thrilled to have her. Do you want me to give a little preview of your talk, like just the description?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay. So
Wait, that's, you mean that's for my night?
for today, for this morning. I think this was stories and strategies for contemporary artists. Yeah, we have so many events going on. So this is just a little teaser about her talk she'll be giving today. Stories and strategies from contemporary artists. With their artistic practice ranging from traditional to non-traditional, boundary-breaking approaches, artists working today often offer us inspiration and insights for living in a complex contemporary world. Explore ways that their artwork, stories, and art-making strategies can prompt your students meaning-filled encounters with art and art-making. So that's what she's going to talk about with us right now. So let's please welcome Marilyn Stewart.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to use this because, the clicker and the whole thing. Let me know if, everybody okay like this? Oh, good. That would be more natural for me, the teacher. So thank you. And it's funny, on my laptop, in the Finder and under Documents, I have Monday evening, Monday morning, Sunday morning. It's just there were 3 presentations to get ready for today, and I was dizzy, going from one to the other. But you're right, that is what we're going to talk about today, and I'm so very pleased to be here. Let's see. I'll get myself set up here a little bit so I can go to places. I want to see what's coming up. Okay, so, but I can't. I think I got to be here. All right, so, so here I am coming from, this is Pennsylvania. I grew up in Cincinnati. And I will be talking a little bit about that tomorrow night, and the impact that had on me. But I moved to Pennsylvania to teach at Kutztown University of Pennsylvania, and this is really the beautiful landscape. If you've not been to Pennsylvania, you need to go. It's gorgeous, and you can't go to just the cities. You got to go out to the countryside. Okay, so I'm graduating when I retired from Kutztown University, and I just want to tell you a little bit about that. Kutztown actually had the very first program in art education. Offered the first bachelor's degree in art education, started in 1929, followed shortly after by Buffalo State University. And so all we do in our Department of Art education is prepare teachers to teach art. And so we have over 100 majors. We have like 50 some graduate students. We're just dedicated to teaching and preparing teachers. So to be at a pre-service conference feels like I'm coming home, and I'm honored to be here. And I feel so welcomed. It really does feel like home because you're my people. Okay, so I retired, but the work continues, as you'll hear a little bit about. So this is my writing cottage. How do you like that? Isn't that great? That's the oldest building on our property, and we're not sure what it was before, but it's a stone cottage built into a stone wall. And anyway, that's it inside. That's cleaner than it normally looks. But I sit like over here and work. And these are my buddies. You wondered about my dog, didn't you? So the one is, unfortunately, we lost Caddy, but I still have Kitty. And they sit, watch out the window next to my desk, and there's a look for squirrels and chipmunks and things. It drives me crazy. You rush out while I'm working. But anyway, so the work continues, even though I'm retired. But being retired, at least you're supposed to have more time to do the kind of thinking that, kind of reflecting on your life, reflecting about, we're so busy that we're just not even sure where we're going next. But, in retirement, you're supposed to be able to have this time to reflect. And I'm working on that. And I have done some of that kind of thinking about what's really important. Now, I want to warn you that I'm going to set this timer because one of the things that happens in retirement when you've been a teacher is that you miss teaching. And so I could go all morning. And I have slides to help me go all morning. So what's going to happen is when this timer goes off, I'm going to see where we are, and then I'm going to decide if we're going to go real fast through a bunch of images, and then you can catch me later and I can tell you what I was going to talk about. but in case I have the time, I wanted to fit as much stuff in as I could. But I'm setting this for 35 minutes. Okay. And I have like 45 minutes, I think, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that means that I have 10 minutes left. So I'm starting that now. And when it goes off, we'll see where we are. Hopefully beyond this slide. Okay. I wish I had the other pictures because sometimes I've shown this picture and then it's a pretty good picture of me, right? But what you don't see is that I'm actually preparing a Thanksgiving turkey. And there's this great big turkey that I'm patting and getting ready. So I chose to show you that. Okay, so thinking about what's important. This is a slide I've used forever as I introduced this sort of thought problem for you. Imagine that 20 years from now, you're at the grocery store or at the farmer's market such as this, and you see somebody, an adult, comes up to you and says, I remember you. You were my elementary art teacher. I remember you. And whether you remember that person or not, what I'd like for you to think about is what do you want that person to have taken away from your art program? Whether you have for a semester or for K through 6. What is it that you want them to, that you want to look at them and know? I may not have taught this, that, or the other thing, but one thing that I know that they know, deep in their heart, they understand it deeply, is this. What is it that you want your students to understand deeply when they leave your program? Now, what do I mean by understand it? Not how to do a linoleum print, not how to really work with a wash, but deeply understand something that they know so well that they don't even know they know it. It's just the way that they approach the world. That's what understanding is. It's something that's integrated into who you are and how you approach the world. So what is it that you want your students to understand that deeply after they leave your program? And it down if you want. Or you can just shout it out. Who would like to just shout something out? Yes, thanks.
That I care about them, if there's somebody that they can come to.
Okay. Yes.
Finding joy
Finding joy in,
anything they do.
okay. Okay, something else? You want them to understand deeply. And I would say that they can go to art and other, that they can find joy. And one way might be through art writing, for example. Okay, yeah.
Just using art as a healthy way to express their emotions.
Okay, that they can use art.
They do have creativity.
Despite what they've been told, and despite what they think, they have creativity. Okay? We are all creative. Yeah. Understand that people can be creative, right? And that everybody has creativity. If that's what you want to say. Okay. Anybody else, please? Yes.
It's okay to fail, because it's truly the first attempt in learning. So that's the sign of the door in the classroom, because I wasn't a sculptor when I first started, but I'm a professional sculptor now. So it's a process that you go through. So again, on my door it says it's okay to fail. It's worse not to try.
Oh, that's great. Yes. Others? Yes.
Being an artist does not rely on like skill.
Yeah, that art is more than just skill. Okay, that's a nice group. I'm gonna share with you some things that others have said, and I think you'll see yourself in there. The art is for all, and by the way, when we have done this with time to really write things out, and they've shared like things that they've written, it's like tear-jerking. It's like poetic, the way people talk about this. But I'm summarizing, I've done this with groups of 600 people in the room, and they invariably, these are the kinds of things that they say, the things that you said. Art is for all of us. People have made art. That's one of the things that we didn't say here, but that, art making, it's not like just today. People have been making art forever. We can make art for personal expression, the emotions that you talked about. Art making can bring joy. Artworks tell us about who we are and what we care about. It wasn't exactly said, but I think we would probably agree. The thing about these ideas is that they're big ideas. They're concepts. They're generalizations. They're not facts. They're large ideas that are the kind that just need to get integrated into one's understanding about the world. And the thing is we often say, my students learn in my program, my students learn that they can, find joy in art. I have students learn that art has been made for, around the world throughout time. And all that. The problem here is that they don't just learn that by coming into your room, and doing the day-to-day stuff. You need to be purposeful. You need to identify those ideas that you really want them to learn, and you need to plan in your curriculum for those to occur. We're going to get to contemporary art in a minute. I'm building up to it. So, while we got something contemporary over here, these are 19,000 years apart. So we don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out what this is. This is an oil lamp found in one of the caves, I'm not sure which one. And I want you to think about, is there a big idea here that you would want your students to understand? That art, or that we, maybe like humans do. What do you notice about both of these objects? They're both functional. Great. And? Do you need all that stuff on the bottom of a skateboard for it to work? Okay, so what do?
Decorate.
We do. We tend to decorate stuff. Look at you. You're a walking, talking example. So one of the things that we could say here is that humans tend to decorate objects that they care about. And why do they do that? They like beautiful things. They like to create things that give them pleasure to view. So this is, seeing these two objects, to me, says something important about the role of art in our culture and the role of art in our lives. I used to ask the question, what is art? And I wrote a book, Thinking Through Aesthetics, that had as one of its major questions, what is art? I've since changed my mind and have thought that that's a less important question than the question, what is art for? And I got that through lots of avenues, but one important avenue is reading the book by Ellen Dissanayake, which is, by the way, titled, What is Art For? And this is not exactly what she said, but generally speaking, cultural anthropologists say that humans have tended to use art for decoration, communication, and celebration. That's it's a shorthand way of talking about what cultural anthropologists would say, but it kind of gets to the point. That we use art for these reasons. And the examples of just that I showed you are perfect examples of somebody in a cave carving into stone. Those marks had nothing to do with function. They had everything in the world to do with beauty. And the same with the kid that's put stickers all over the bottom of her skateboard. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to say is I'm not going to be introducing a lot of specific contemporary artists, but I'm going to have a lot of contemporary art up here on the screen. And I've tried to identify it. And so when you see these, if there are any that interest you, note their names and so on. Okay, another person who talked about this is Graham Chalmers, and he wrote a book called Celebrating Pluralism a long time ago. He was a student of June King McPhee, so anybody who's studying the history of art education should know that she was a very important person and really spoke to the importance of art from a cultural and anthropological perspective. And her students, who then went out into the field and permeated our graduate programs and undergraduate programs, brought that message with them. And Chalmers, as one of her students, put this book together, and I love his list of what art makers are in our culture. So there are recorders of history, there are teachers and storytellers and ascribers of status, enhancers and decorators, and so on. It's a great list that comes from him. Okay, so what is art for? Art records our daily life. Art can teach us new things. Art helps us celebrate important life events. Art is a way to keep our memories. Art can move us to action. So I just want to say that these are big ideas. And you can organize your curriculum around these big ideas so that you can be purposeful in getting your students to understand them. You can keep coming back to this. It's not like you have to say it over and over again, but you could have it up on, if you're doing a unit that's based on one of these ideas, you can have it in the room up there and say, art records our daily life. That's the idea that we're dealing with in this unit. Okay. Oh my gosh, I forgot I had more. So I love this piece by Hank Lewis Thomas, and if you're not familiar with his work in general, you need to be. So, but we use art to enhance special places. And we use art to communicate feelings and express ideas, and use art to persuade others to follow, and art to celebrate our identity. A lot of that's going on with Hank Willis Thomas' work there. All right. And by the way, the current national standards for all the arts are based on these 5 ideas about the importance of art. And they basically repeat the things that we've been talking about. So if you were to go to the standards and read all the philosophical stuff that undergirds the standards, you would find this list. And that art as a means to well-being is one that, particularly these days, it seems that if you look at the titles of the conference presentations at NAEA, you'll see that there's a lot of this going on in the way we're thinking about the importance of art these days. Okay. So why do we teach art? Because we understand all these things that I've been saying. It's like, yeah, y'all, you get it, you understand it, because you get it. we want our students to understand these things too. So, my COVID project. So, by the way, so I've been writing curriculum, as you heard, since I think the first books came out in the late, right, it's 2000, I think. And this is my most recent book, and it's for middle school. And I did this over COVID, 3.5 years. I usually have 3.5 years of Catholic guilt, and anybody who's Catholic knows what I'm talking about, because I would have editors meetings twice a week, and every Tuesday and Thursday, and every Monday and Wednesday night, I'd be like, I haven't done enough, oh, they're gonna yell at me, So anyway, that was the project, and this is so it was basically what I'm saying is that was me creating curriculum based on big ideas that I was going to incorporate into that book, and this is what it looks like. This if you've been trying to write lesson plans and you've been trying to write unit plans, this is what it looks like. The thought process. I think I've got 7 notebooks, maybe more, and I'm still working on them. And this is just for that book. I'm tapping into that book up there at the top is like things that I've done in the past. I'm looking at the computer for images. There are the standards back there that I rely on. Okay, so, and this is still on the board behind my desk in that little cottage. I've got all these, this is the organization, and this is the little paper, 8.5 by 11 one I carry it around with me. So, Eldon, Catter, and I, when we started writing our textbooks, we're looking for a way to reflect an cultural and anthropological look at art based on big ideas. And we found the work of this man, Ernest Boyer, to be very persuasive, compelling, and we thought that we would use his way of breaking up how the humans, what we humans share, human commonalities, as a way to organize our curriculum. It's not, that's a choice. When you're creating curriculum, you decide. We chose this as our organizing structure. So he based on, he said you could actually create a school based on just these human commonalities, and you could come at it from science and math and all the humanities and so on. And you could do a K through 16, he was talking about K through college, and that could organize your whole program of education. Well, we took those seriously, and we came up with this is a typical way that we organize. So, we have one unit on messages, which has to do with we use symbols to communicate. We have one unit on daily life, which is we all live with meaning and purpose. We have identity and nature, place, lessons, celebrations, and beauty. They all correspond to one of his human commonalities. And so in organizing, now we're getting to the contemporary art just a minute. So in order to put that curriculum together, remember, I'm doing the curriculum for students I don't really know. You're doing curriculum for students that you're very familiar with. And so this, in a way, is very abstract. It's not, those aren't specific students, but I'm thinking, and I've got a lot of people helping me understand who the students are today. But at any rate, the idea here is that for any unit, we would investigate that big idea from a variety of perspectives, and that's what we do in the book. We reflect upon our own experiences and ideas to see the connections between, the big idea and our own lives. So, how do I participate in the aesthetic, for example? And then we animate the big idea or theme with multiple examples. Now, in the classroom, we'd be doing that by showing kids artworks and so on. In the book, we actually have to select the artworks we're going to show in the book, and that would help really animate the ideas. And in choosing, and this does have to do with you, in choosing artworks to help your students grapple with those big ideas, investigate and explore. We all want our students to know some of the artworks that are timeless, right? Where's Brooklyn? you were telling me about how much you love the Columbus Art Museum because of the many Monets. We don't want to forget those Monets, right? We don't want to forget those. But, and so here's some timeless. We also want the artworks that we show our students to be timely. We want them to be the artworks that are in their world. Has anybody been to Chicago to see this piece? What was it like?
It was like in the book, it was very interactive. There were a lot of kids interacting with it. And it was very bright and sunny, so the water was really nice and refreshing. It was really lovely.
That's great to experience this artwork. I can't wait to get to Chicago to do it because I haven't seen it in person, but I've written about it and I've shown it in books. And these are the digital images of people in the neighborhood, and they change, right? And then but they're always coming out of the mouth. The fountain always comes out of the mouth of whatever person who lives in the community is pictured. And then the people are playing in the water and so on. Kids need to know that there's art that they can experience like that. You know, they need to know that art is out there for us. So this is contemporary stuff. It's timely. It might be timeless at some point. So contemporary artists provide, I've always said, insights into art, like all artists do. But in particular, contemporary artists speak to us today. They give us ways to see the world. They raise questions for us to think about. And they suggest ways that we can move into action. And our kids need that. I love this, and I think it would be so much fun to continue Portia Munson's Pink Project, the bedroom. It would just be so much fun. And what are we saying? What is that message? You know. So this lists all the things the kids are dealing with these days. So much going on, and so on. It's a lot. And what I think, and that's why I put this, that contemporary artists model ways to live in and respond to our contemporary world. So if we care about our kids and we care about them living in their world, we need to find ways to show them that art can be relevant to the things that they worry about. And that can be certainly local. That would be wonderful if it's local, but also can be global and beyond. Well, not beyond global, that is beyond. The other thing is, of course, representation. We need to be careful what we chose to show and all of that. And I know that you, here in this program, have learned an awful lot about how to work with artworks made by others. Here's that same piece again. I must like it. Okay, so in my book, and again, this is what I have, this is the curriculum that I'm working on, so I'm just sharing this. What we decided to do was open every chapter with a contemporary piece that has to do with the theme, in this case messages, that goes back to that Ernest Boyer, we all communicate with symbols. And this, we introduced Yinka Shonabari. Are you familiar with his work? He's a great artist to be familiar with. He's dealing with the problem of water, the need for water, and the absence of water, and how many cultures around the world are struggling to get clean water. And if you look very closely, you'll see things like those are water pipes that on the fabric. He's dealing with an awful lot of issues. Colonialization is another one, and it has to do with the fabrics. That's something for you to look up. It's really exciting. I love showing the image of the artist. I think that's important for kids to know, but particularly with contemporary artists, they need to know as a real person there. Not, this isn't just an artwork. This is a person who's making choices every day about making art to share with others. Here's a daily life. Now, I love this. This is called, by the way, Marilyn. Of course I would choose it from the book. This is Joana Vasconcelos, and she's Portuguese. And if you have a chance to write her name down and go looking for a video of her introducing you to her huge studio in Lisbon, you need to do that. She's just amazing. But in case you haven't figured this out, those are stainless steel pots and pans. Those are pans with stainless steel lids that make up these high heels. And I don't think this is Trying to think of where, I don't think this, she has one, she's had them installed in Versailles. I'm not sure that this is Versailles, but it's another fancy place. And just to have the pots and pans here. So this unit, by the way, we deal with functional objects and daily life and how people use functional objects. And then this, I was doing a thing about contemporary art on Zoom during COVID, I think. And I was showing it was for New York Art Education Association. I was showing them a lot of contemporary artists that I'd been considering for use in the book. I was kind of in the midst of doing the book. And this one person said, you know, I love all these artists you're showing, but they're all based in New York and these galleries and stuff. The kids I work with, are coming to school in camo. They live on farms. They deal with farm equipment and machinery. Do you have anything that they would connect to? And I went, oh, no, but I'll find somebody. And so this was at least one way that I addressed that concern. And this is Carl Unash, and he's out in, where is this? Is this Minnesota? I think it's Minnesota. And because somebody came at NAEA, I happened to open the book to that page, and she said, I know that work. I didn't believe it. Anyway, so he celebrates the agricultural community of the Midwest with his works, and he takes machinery and he does these stained glass windows, and there's a ton of work that he does that's basically the same. It deals with farm equipment. So I think it's important to show students the artists living in their world. Sometimes they're doing traditional work. This is in Philadelphia. They actually do call themselves the neighborhood potters, and they do kind of traditional work. But then another person working in clay, there are two things I want to say about this. One is these are more traditional things that you would see, and that's important too, and for kids to know. At any rate, I think it's important to go deep with the artist. That not just, oh, here's one. Let's get to know these people and how they work. So we did that with Sandy and Neil for Dustin. And then we also we did a deep dive with Rose Simpson. And Rose Simpson grew up in Santa Clara, Pueblo, in northern New Mexico, and she went away and studied art, but came back and she works in the Pueblo. And the Pueblo is right next to the Pueblo where Maria Martinez and her family worked, and so you know that black on black work. But she really she creates guardian figures. They're really self-portraits, but she's celebrating part of her identity that she wants to cherish with each one of them. And so kids get to know their work, their story. I mean, the story is here that they'll read about, and there's more in the teacher's edition, of course. And then, but they get to see her working in her studio. And then this is a piece that she did. She that lowrider. She refurbished that lowrider and named it Maria, because you can see the black on black. And she did a performance piece with it, kind of going into a museum. The thing about today's artists is that they're not using materials that we normally use. This Zenobia Bailey, these are tires, right? Have you ever seen any of her work? She uses a steel rim tires and creates these huge sculptures. I have to say, if anybody knows who did this, I would appreciate it, because I can't remember, but I got the picture, and it makes the point that we're not using typical traditional materials. Those cute little sets of acrylic markers that we were going to, be in the door prize. That, a lot of artists aren't using those. They're using tires, and I don't know what that all is, but and the places they work are different. So, like, this is an NCYS studio, and this is Janet Ephelman's studio. Creates these huge fiber things that float in the air, hung from giant buildings and bridges and things. So the way they work, the materials they use, their studios, they're different. And somebody introduced us to that. Olivia Goody, you may have heard of her, she has introduced, she said, it's really interesting, contemporary artists don't use elements and principles so much. They've got these other things going on that they do. And she introduced us to them. She calls them principles, postmodern principles, and she wrote this in the year 2004. We've all learned from her. It's important learning in art education. She lists these things like juxtaposition, recontextualization, hybridity, text and image, and so on. And I rather than call them principles, I actually think they're strategies. So I call them strategies, but it's all due to her pointing it out and bringing them to our attention. And so when we look at contemporary art, we don't necessarily, we don't look at Zenobia Bailey's tires and say, line shape, color, form, texture. We're looking at other things. And sometimes it's this. Okay, so we need to take our students seriously as art makers, giving them choices, and I know somebody's going to be talking about choice here at the conference, giving opportunities to reflect in their journals. This is my reflecting on she's doing a journal entry investigating ways to do a reliquary, and Sophia is doing the same, but this is her journal, very different. Mapping leads to self-portraits. The thing that, with the National Visual Arts Standards, they talk about creating, presenting, responding, and connecting. It's that, all these things are connected. We're responding to artworks, we're presenting artworks that we make, we're looking at things that other people have done, both professional artists and our own. I say that, curriculum planning and responding to art are two of my favorite things to think about. And lots of responding in a non-threatening environment where it's not right or wrong, but you're developing skills, and by practice is what I think is really important. And this guy who died, unfortunately, Klaus Curtis, was a critic, and he came to visit my students in my criticism class, and they asked what do you think your job is? And he said, I see my role as providing you with a kind of doorknob, a way of entering, and then you need to open the door. So all of my classes in responding to art start with this, that we all provide ways to enter an artwork. And so it's interpretation is what's important. Maybe this is an idea that the artist is grappling with. Maybe they're thinking about this other thing. We're after plausibility, not truth, when we interpret. So, this is all to get to this point where I want to engage you a bit with this particular artwork. And so I'm starting with this, and my point here is that in order for you to, the need for contemporary, to have your kids engage with contemporary art, I think is really important. I hope I made that case, and I hope you agree with me. But I also think that it's hard, finding the time, finding the artists, and so on. But I also think what's really important is that it's not the teacher saying, here, look at this, now, onward. You really have to engage with the work, and your kids need to engage with the work. And spend time, and come up with interpretations. And so it's a deep dive into the work that makes it relevant. And you don't have to do it all the time, but I think it's real important to do that. So just to kind of play with this a bit, let's just talk about this particular work. Somebody want to just say, what do you see? And answer the question. Oh dear. Oh no, that's my son calling. I don't know, I have to cut him off, I don't know how. There, just turn on. You should know better. Call your mother, it means so much. My son calls me every day and I love it, he's 50 too. Anyway, so I got 3 minutes to bed done, but I have a little bit more time. But anyway, so when we talk about, what do you see here? You encounter this, and we actually did this. I took my students, we were at Massimo event. This was there. What do you see? If you were walking in this room, what did you say? Oh, there's this, that, here. What do you see?
Greenhouse.
Okay. More.
Holes in
the ceiling?
In a way that you can stick your head into it.
In a way you can stick your head into it, if you don't mind me repeating, just so these folks are here. Somebody else?
The stool, so people little can get up there.
Yeah. So, you know, if you had any question about intention, you know, there it is. You know, it's like, yeah, you're supposed to. Yeah.
Some are similar shapes and some are different.
Yeah. Okay. What's in there? Yeah, planks. Okay. So what would it be like? Well, tell me what it would be like to be in that, have your head in there. Oh, thank you.
It would kind of be like seeing it from a completely different view, because the outside view is completely different, but then when you stick your head in there, it's like you're looking at a completely different world.
Right there, eye level, right? Yeah. What would it smell like? Oh, yeah.
What would it look like? It makes me think of like, from the perspective of like a bug or an animal or something, like you're on eye level with all this stuff, kind of like, or like the movies of Bug's Life from Pixar, like how everything is sized down, because it's like the ant. That's what it makes me think of, like you're kind of immersed in the world, like
You're right
a
there.
smaller creature.
Thank you, great. Anybody else? Yeah.
I imagine it smells probably like manure, but also like plants and like general like freshness, and it's probably like a little bit warmer in there since it's more like a terrarium.
Can you just imagine that? The smell? Yeah. There were some places that had enough for 2 people to go in. That would have been fun, huh? So as you're looking at this, this is a whole list of descriptive words. And by the way, I just want to say that for 1,000 years I've been using descriptive words, some of the same ones. And when I made them the first time, computers weren't available, and we used this stuff called press type. And you had to rub letters on. I had illustration board cards cut just the right size, and then I rubbed press type words. I still have those cards that I used when I was first teaching. But some of the same words. So it's like some things just, you know, you just keep doing. And so, descriptive. Do you find a word that you could use to, no, there we go.
So Marilyn, we've got about 5 minutes.
That's good. Yeah, let me put that in there. Yeah, because I hit repeat, that's probably not what you want me to do. Okay, I'm gonna give myself 5 minutes. All right. Hello? Help me. Help me get through this 5 minutes. We can move on, yeah.
I see like organic within the houses, but then the houses themselves are very geometric.
Perfect.
It's also very bright with like the lighting and the plants.
Great. Okay,
It's very open.
great.
The tension and the string holding up the greenhouses.
Well, great. See how the words there force you to see things you might not have seen? So if you're sitting staring at a word and you want to use it, you can find a way, maybe. The other question to ask your kids is, does anybody have a word that doesn't work? Because if you've shifted, you know, distributed these cards and everybody's got like 3, you say, do you have, out of your 3 cards, does anyone not work? And then why? That's another way to pay attention. And then kids are still involved. Moods and feelings.
Calm.
Yep.
I like dreamy because it's like your head is in the clouds, head in the house of plants.
Lovely.
I
Yep.
like it. Silly, because you might feel a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, silly. Right. Silly. Yeah, back there. Anybody?
Quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, get your own world.
Friendly for the double.
Yeah, right. Great. Anybody else?
It may be hesitant if you're not sure if you're supposed to stick your head in there or not.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that with any kind of, you know, kind of artwork that has you participate. That's part of it, I think. Okay, we're flying through this. Okay, so this is when I begin to fund the conversation. I tell you who the artist is and I give you the title. So at some point you want to do that. This is Von Bell. The name of this piece is Village Green. So here's themes and ideas. Complete a sentence. This artwork is about. Do any of these sentence completions have themes or ideas fit what you think is going on here?
About nature.
Yeah, it's about nature somehow. Anybody else think it might be something else up there?
Personal and cultural beliefs.
Pardon me?
Personal and cultural beliefs.
Okay, yeah, I think we could make that case, yeah.
Perspective.
Oh, yeah, where's that?
Oh, is it supposed to be up there?
Yeah. Oh, providing a personal perspective, is that what you're saying? Yeah, that would work.
And then you could do the status or wealth, because in this you're all in the same little Bug's Life world.
Right, you can make that case. I mean, some of these are just actually giving you thoughts that you maybe never would have thought about, but you can maybe see it and make a case for it. Here's, how about, this is another set of cards. It's about the idea of beauty. This artwork is about sad or unpleasant things. It's about personal identity. It's about showing things as they really look in the world. Well, yeah. Okay, isn't it, about an important place? Probably, but about beauty, I think we could probably make that case, right? It depends on what you want to say about the environment and, go further in terms of sad and unpleasant things. Designed to persuade people to change their mind or behavior? Might be, yeah. Participate more, right? Something like that. It's about joyful times, why not? It's about social issues, perhaps. Notice that you could make, a lot of these, you could make these fit. But what you probably need is some more contextual information. And you could start with things that the artist has said. So she says that her artistic approach to nature is sad, but humorous, kind of funny, and hopeful. She's interested in how, in addition to seeing things around us, we also physically experience the spaces we are in. This adds to our understanding of the work. Nature is always present, no matter how urban your landscape might be. It's in the cracks of your sidewalk or your backyard, says on back. So this kind of helps us get a better sense of what this is about. These are some of her other works. Another way of funding the conversation is to show other works that she's done. I'm moving very fast on more things that she says. But my question here is, isn't it interesting how this contextual information, the other artworks and her statements about the work add to your understanding? So it's a good thing to go for. And then the other thing we can do is take those contemporary strategies and think about what has she been doing here? Okay, there it is. All right. So what how is this? No, over and down. So to wrap up, what I'd like to remind us, by the way, the way that it was going to go is I was going to be like, what did we do? We talked about everything that we did here, and then we get to what the importance of criticism and responding to art. I wanted to point out the responding standard and note that in pre-K, we're just interpreting art by identifying and describing subject matter. But by the time you get to high school, you're analyzing different interpretations of an artwork and collection works in order to select and defend a plausible interpretation. So it's not like kids get introduced to all this at once. It's scaffolded over time. And check out the standards to see how they have it scanned. And by the way, that was my area of writing the standards, so I know what they said. Okay. I want to say that response to art and design reinforces culture of belonging, careful listening engenders empathy, and so on. And I just think that just creating an environment for safe response to art is important. And then you choose artworks, and then what I want to say is my plea is that you absolutely commit to engaging your students in response to art in a deep dive kind of way and getting really involved, and so that then informs their art making, and they are making art like they're contemporary artists out there in the world, that's meaningful for them in the world that they live in. Use the contemporary artists as models, but don't be afraid to take the time and have kids spend talking about art. And I just want to, Jeff, this method, he puts on the door when the kids are coming into his art room, he puts either a hand or an eyeball. And it's, and he's done that from kindergarten on, so they know that sometimes art class is about looking, sometimes it's about making, and sometimes it's both. And when they see it on the door, they know that that's what they're going to be doing that day. And so they're not disappointing, and they don't say, when are we going to have real art? Which is what you probably have heard. Okay, I'm not going to do this. You got this? And I just want to give you a little love letter. There you go, to all of you. And good luck to you in your teaching lives. I know you're going to do well. You've got such great people to guide you, and I wish you the very, very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. That was awesome. We have recorded that, so if you want to see it again later, we'll have recordings. So now you get to choose where you want to go. So we have Perry Tatlow in room 148, Lisa Martin in room 103, and Tori Reynolds in room 136.